question, maybe you
I have some question.
yeah, I guess, and I believe this question is probably on the minds of some people. Why is it that, say for example, if I always wanted to have a big car, and I told myself I'm going to be very happy when I get this big car. So when I get it, I finally got it, and I'm happy for a while, but then I'm back to my usual self again. Because after a while, the big car is just become a part of you, and then everything else, you just settle back to your normal self, and then you find that hey, you're not so happy again. And then you tell yourself, look, I always wanted to have a big house. And then finally I got this big house, and I'm happy for a while. Then once I got used to the house, somehow that happy feeling just isn't there anymore. So why do you think that's the case? I mean, what happens?
Okay. Later I'll pass it back to him because he's the best person to answer the question since he went through that whole process. But for my opinion, what I'll share is, I think one of the points I mentioned earlier is about appreciating things and being present with where we're at. So when you talk about, let's say I use maybe this example may be a bit clearer, but it's the same feeling. So let's say if I'm looking towards that $1 million. So while I plan the goals and vision, so I'm striving to get there. And maybe let's say I take 5 years or 10 years. And all along the journey, I'm in this kind of anxiety mode. So my goals are there. If I don't hit the targets for the day, I may be unhappy. So I'm striving. And then finally, when I get there, so the day I hit the 1 million. So if it's just a purely logical thing, and I don't take time to enjoy the process, first I would have missed out at 5-10 years of my life. I would have been, yes, I got the money, but I would have been suffering and unhappy. And even when I get there, I may see that $1 million as kind of like a leverage or a springboard. And then I start to ask myself, okay, so I must be like my tycoon friends. Now that I have my first 1 million, we call it seed money. So how do I multiply this into 5 million in the next 2 years? And I want to do it in a way that I predict the future so accurately that I'm sure that I'm not going to lose this money. And it's definitely going to multiply to 5 million, and it's generally safe and etc. So you see, we set up something for ourselves again. And then the next 2 years, I mean, of course, things may go well and that's fine, but you can expect what is probably more likely to happen. The ups and downs, and you're trying to go 1 million to 5 million, there's no guarantee. So you are trying to have a surefire way where there's no risk, but definitely the money will grow by many, many times. And so that's a recipe for a lot of suffering. And you're asking the mind and you're asking yourself to do something which is generally I don't say impossible, but it's not to a certain extent not fully realistic. Because you cannot predict the future. So I can have a very well thought out plan on how to get to 1 million, from 1 million to 5 million, but I cannot guarantee there's no risk and that I'll definitely make it. So if that's a caveat that we set for ourselves, then there'll be a lot of suffering. And when we get there, then wonderful. So it becomes 5 million. Okay, but Mr. Tan has 92.3 million. And I think that I'm smarter than him. So the next goal is 95 million. And the whole thing just goes on. So that's one part that I can see. That's one possibility, that we don't take time to actually enjoy and be present with what we thought we wanted. Yeah, but maybe
yeah, I think speaking from personal experience, my takeaway is that it's just not possible to find happiness in material things. And so maybe there's a reason why once you acquire those material things that you want, the happiness doesn't last very long. Because material things won't actually make you happy. So just like in the case of example I quoted just now, where I got a big car and I got it, so I started enjoying driving it. Then after a while, you take it for granted, because after having the car, it's just how do I put it? It just becomes a normal part of you. It's no longer
How long was it?
It may last for a few months, because once you get used to the car,
that's good.
Yeah, I think
That's many people.
I mean, that's why I think, I'm not sure how long it lasted, but just what I estimate. So, I think that's what happens because you get so used to it, you start taking things for granted, just in everyday life. By right, we should be very happy for it, the fresh air that we breathe, the water that we get to drink. Uh, but we're not because it's there for us. We take it for granted. You only uh, feel for it. For example, when you're running and your throats are just so parched and dry, then just getting a sip of water just makes you happy because it's it's just something that you really want at a point in time. But then on a day-to-day basis, the water is always there. So you just don't think about it, take it for granted. So it's the same that applies to all material things. When you don't have it, you desire for it, and then you think you'll be happy having it. But once you have it, um, it just becomes part of you, and then you're just back to square one.
Yeah. So if I may add, like earlier I mentioned about, happiness being, there are three main types. So I would consider this type of happiness as the pleasurable part. Where you find it's very short term. You have it, the pleasure of having it, the happiness comes. But then after a while, it becomes a norm. Once it becomes a norm, it's over. The joy, the happiness, and all, it's over because it becomes normal then. So that's why it's very dangerous for people who always are seeking happiness, and they always attach happiness to things, which is not lasting, because the things that you want, or the money that you want, like what Kim mentioned. You strive and you say, oh, I hit 5 million, I want more and more and more. So the thing is that if you attach yourself to things or money or anything that you want, the minute you have it, for a while, yes, short term, you'll be happy, but then after that, it's gone. Then what next? Then you start craving for one more thing, another thing, and another thing. So there's no end. So that's the reason why, you see, a lot of people, there are some that I have spoken to, like some of my acquaintances and friends that were referred to me. You see, there are people who went into depression because of that, because they are always seeking for happiness, and they do not know what's the purpose behind what they're seeking for. So they keep seeking for material things. But if they have it, they're happy for a while, and then after that, it's all over. And then they seek for another thing. But what if they don't get it? That's when the trouble starts. That's when they sink into depression. And the more they sink into depression, the more they keep focusing on that thing that they want and they didn't get it, and then it spirals downwards. So it's a very, very dangerous part if we keep focusing on things and all that. To me, I don't know, maybe it's upbringing or whatever, because I get satisfied, I get happy, I find joy in even little things that I do, that I attain. Like sometimes my friends ask me, even my husband, my son ask me, hey mama, how come you are like always so happy, so joyful? But outwardly, yes, I'm happy. Of course, inwardly, I still have things or purpose that I desire to have.
So just now when you were saying about you generally small things, simple things can make you happy.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't mean that you forget that you have a purpose at the back of your mind.
Yes.
So are you trying to say that you know the direction that you're moving in and you're taking the steps, but somehow you're not attached to it?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, for me it's like I don't attach myself to anything. Like even while I was doing sales, in the past, I don't attach to that. Of course, I have a goal that I want to meet my sales target by when, and by when I must hit this target and that target. But there are times, yes, I hit it even earlier, but there are times I missed it. But I don't put an attachment to it that, oh, I miss it, oh, then I will cry, or I will, get so depressed and things like that. No. For me, is I move on. Because as long as I know I tried my best, as long as I know I put in the best effort that I can, and that's it. Yeah. So just let things be. So That's why a lot of my friends say, how come you're so happy? Every day you're so happy. I am happy. Yeah.
That's true. That's something we've seen in her.
Yeah.
We don't call her happy-go-lucky. But normal emotions are okay.
Yeah.
So I would take it to mean that you don't get so attached that you are paralyzed, or depressed. But of course, when you get a small win, celebrate. When you're happy, smile, laugh. When there's something like sadness comes, of course it's okay to be sad for a while. Just don't let it totally suck you in.